The Mouth of Sauron is one of the more enigmatic characters in Tolkien's legendarium, having his past enshrouded in mystery. Yet there are some hints that could help piece together this character's past and provide us with a better understanding. Hello friends, it's Carl here, and in today's episode we'll be discussing the Lieutenant of Barad Dur. So the Mouth of Sauron is believed to have been a Black Numenorean. During the Second Age, Sauron convinced the Numenorean king Ar-Pharazôn to attack Valinor and claim immortality, though this resulted in their defeat and the sinking of the island of Numenor. Despite this disaster, some Numenoreans survived, namely the Faithful, led by Elendil, and some of the corrupted Numenoreans that had previously set up settlements in Middle-earth, and thus survived the downfall of Numenor. These were known as the Black Numenoreans, and they primarily lived in the seaport Umbar. Though we can almost say for certain that the Mouth of Sauron was a Black Numenorean, other aspects of his past are quite mysterious. We're uncertain when he entered Sauron's service or how old he was. However, we're told that he entered the service of the Dark Tower when it first rose again. Now, the Dark Tower refers to Barad Dur, and the first time it was destroyed was following the events of the Last Alliance. It was rebuilt in the year 2951 of the Third Age, and since we're told he joined Sauron when Barad Dur first rose again, it seems to imply that he joined around this time. His potential age is a lot more ambiguous, but if one had to assume that he joined Sauron aged 20 earliest, that would make him at least 88 years, if not older, during the events of the War of the Ring. Considering his Numenorean heritage, this doesn't seem unlikely, though it is said that the Black Numenoreans in Umbar mingled and bred with lesser men, which would have reduced their lifespan significantly. Therefore, if I had to guess, I'd say it's quite plausible that the Mouth of Sauron came from a pure line of Numenorean blood, perhaps even nobility, though once again this is merely my own speculation. I don't think we can rule out either that Sauron might have perhaps prolonged his life through sorcery, though I think it's less likely. It is said that the Mouth of Sauron was more cruel than any orc and had great cunning, which caused him to rise quickly in Sauron's favor. We also know that he learned great sorcery and knew much of the mind of Sauron. It is no wonder that he became the right-hand man of Sauron, the Lieutenant of the Tower of Barad Dur. There was no tale that could recall his name, he himself had forgotten it. I like to believe that this was due to his devotion to Sauron, that he became so immersed in his dark arts that his very identity was lost, being replaced by his role, that of the Mouth of Sauron. He's described as being tall, robed in black, and having an evil shape. He wore a black helmet, and though his description does sound similar to that of a ring wraith, we're told specifically that he was a living man, and no wraith. What I find almost more frightful is the description of his horse, which I'd like to read to you because I think it's quite a powerful piece. Mounted upon a black horse, if horse it was, for it was huge and hideous, and its face was a frightful mask, more like a skull than a living head, and in the sockets of its eyes and in its nostrils there burned a flame. I think some degree of sorcery must have been applied to his steed to warp it so, as I don't believe any such creature could be found naturally in Middle-earth. I think it's more likely that sorcery was used to create an illusion to give it such an appearance, though we can't rule out it actually being altered physically and kept alive through some dark magic. During the War of the Ring, the Mouth of Sauron is sent out as an emissary to negotiate with the host of the West. However, his true purpose was a lot more devious, as he was meant to break their spirit. We're told, but Sauron had already laid his plans, and he had a mind first to play these mice cruelly before he struck to kill. The Mouth of Sauron then shows them Sam's sword, Frodo's elven cloak, and his mithril mail, giving them the impression that the hobbits had been captured. This had a much stronger effect than he could have anticipated though, for it implied that Sauron had recovered the ring. He informed them that Frodo would be tortured for many long years, and that perhaps, once he's completely changed and broken, they would free him, so that his friends and companions could see what had been done to him. However, he also said that Frodo would be freed and spared torture if they agreed to his terms. He demanded that the host of the West must retreat beyond the Anduin, and they must swear oaths to never attack Sauron again. The terms also stated that all lands to the east of the Anduin must be given to Sauron as tribute, and that Isengard would also be Sauron's, and his lieutenant shall dwell there. It's implied that this lieutenant would be the Mouth of Sauron himself. In the movies, Aragorn approaches and beheads the Mouth of Sauron, which I find to be quite out of character, while in the books he's allowed to leave and ride back to the Black Gate. Following Sauron's defeat, it is not known whether the Mouth of Sauron survived, or if he perished during the Battle of the Black Gate and the fall of Barad Dur. However, if he did survive, it is plausible that he might have become one of the leaders of what remained of Sauron's servants. In fact, the storyline occurs in the Lord of the Rings Online. One of the things which I love most about this character is quite subtle, as it is the dichotomy that is set up between the Mouth of Sauron and Aragorn. Both of them are among the last descendants of Numenor, both holding positions of power, yet Aragorn stood as a leader and king, while the Mouth of Sauron was but a servant. This dichotomy is once again seen several times during their interactions. When the Mouth of Sauron first sees Aragorn, he mocks him, comparing him to a brigand of the hills, and in response Aragorn simply stared into his eyes, and we're told, "But soon, though Aragorn did not stir nor move hand to weapon, the other quailed, and gave back as if menaced with a blow. 'I am herald and ambassador, and may not be assailed,' he cried." I love the way Tolkien describes it, the pure, unwavering spirit of Aragorn, against the false image the Mouth of Sauron wanted to portray. After the host of the West declined his terms, we're told, "Then the messenger of Mordor laughed no more. His face was twisted with amazement and anger to the likeness of some wild beast, that, as it crouched on its prey, is smitten on the muzzle with a stinging rod. Rage filled him, and his mouth slavered, and shapeless sounds of fury came strangling from his throat. But he looked at the fell faces of the captains and their deadly eyes, and fear overcame his wrath." This really shows us how far he had fallen from the nobility and pride that the Numenoreans were known for. Anyway friends, this wraps up today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you can, leave a like, cause it helps this channel immensely, and subscribe to join our fellowship today. I hope to see you all in my next video, where together we can once again explore the magical world and lore of Middle-earth.